I hear that Lam Akol, who's a friend as well as a contemporary of Bona and Aldo, he is online. Lam?
Thank you very much, Ahmed, in this special and emotional coming together. I thank everybody who has contributed to make this occasion happen. I am deeply sorry not to be able to come because certain things gravitated against it. It is not easy to talk about Bona Malwal, but I will only concentrate on points of where either I had direct contact with him or that I directly followed what happened. Bona is really a unique person combining several experiences, starting from village life, a bureaucracy of the civil service, political organization and practice, journalism, executive and legislative contributions, and so on. He was a dedicated, selfless, and courageous patriot. Maybe in the course of my short contribution, I may touch on these aspects. The first time I saw Bona was in 1965, Malal. By then I was a young pupil, but someone interested in politics, because my father was the representative of the Southern Front in Malakal. Actually, they chose Malakal to be the venue for the convention of the Southern Front. The party, in fact, was formed almost single-handedly by Bona. When the Abud regime fell, he found himself mobilizing the people to build this Southern Front. The nucleus of Southern Front was a secret organization of some Southern intellectuals who were opposed to the regime, the military regime, and at the same time fighting by the means that they know for the interests of the South. But they do not have a solid organization that can now articulate policies in the new era of democracy that came about after the fall of Abud. So he tried to contact a few of his friends. With very little resources, he moved between Khartoum North, Omdurman, until he gathered a number of quite a big number of Southerners in a ground to discuss the formation of this Southern Front. And it was formed under conditions that were very pressing at that time. The Southern Front had to, as I said, come up as a party for the Southern people, but also they had to be representing the Southerners in the transitional government that was under formation at that time. And he did this really with remarkable precision and remarkable selflessness. He didn't have the resources, but he had a car of one of his friends who was just a young dog. It's called Gordon Abiy. And after a week or so, they were up and standing. And they were able, in fact, through his own networks, he was familiar with those big figures in northern politics at that time, with Sadiq al-Mahdi, with those of Azhari, and all these who were influential in trying to shape the transitional government. And he was able, and thanks to his own knowledge of Cyril Katim al-Khalifa. Cyril Katim al-Khalifa was the head of educational department in South Sudan. He was a friend of Bona. And luckily, he was the one chosen to be the prime minister of the transitional period. So Bona and his few friends were able to impose that the representation of the South in the transitional government should be nominated by the Southern Front. And in fact, there were other names that were proposed by the parties in the North. Again, also through his contacts, he were able to persuade some of them in order to step down in favor of the Southern Front. And look what he did, you know, what he did. He went and brought Kalamanamboro, who was the second man in the administration of Darfur, from Fashir, and nominated him to be the Minister of Interior. Then he insisted that Isboni Mundiri, who was arrested in the 1957-58 elections and accused of treason simply because he called his party a federal party. He was sentenced in what you can call a kangaroo court these days and put in jail in Port Sudan since 1958. He insisted that he should be released and then become a minister in the transitional government. The third person he thought about was Helele Paul Logali, who was doing his master's degree in Yale University, again to come and become part of the government. You can see that the three, his name is not Fisher, nor did he even nominate the peer who are close to him. Then he nominated to the Council of State, the Council of Five. He nominated Luigi Adok to represent the Southern Front. Now, to come back to where they went to Malacca, you remember that in 1965, it was proposed to have the Roundtable Conference to resolve the problem of South Sudan. And it was a conference of its first kind. In addition to the Sudanese from the South and the North who would be attending, there were 7 countries who were observers, 7 African countries that were observers. So for the first time, the case of the Southern Sudanese would be presented in front of an African audience. Now, they decided the new Southern Front. They decided that before they go to the conference, they must hold a national a national convention, so that they have a leadership that has a popular backing. And that is where they came to Malakal. That's the first time I heard of somebody called Bona Malwal. Then afterwards, when I came to the north for the first time in 1967 as a student, now joining secondary school, that's where we got exposed to his journalistic, abilities in writing. The Vigilant newspaper, which was almost the only English newspaper that the Southerners trusted. There were two other English papers, but the Vigilant stood out as a paper that the people wanted to read all the time. Our people, when they are told that there's a particular news item, those days they will ask, was it announced by the BBC? And then if it is not announced by the BBC, then you doubt that it is authentic news. So they used to say, this thing, was it written in the Vigilant? Mm-hmm. And of course, his experience with the Vigilant is where he also showed the courage. I will step forward and say that one of the great achievements of Bona Malwal,
yes,
which is relevant to the current situation in South Sudan. He came up with a great idea in 2010 that the Southerners, we need to sit down so that we prepare ourselves for the self-determination exercise that was going to be carried out a few months after. So he came up with this idea of the whole South Sudan political parties conference. The idea found a lot of resistance, especially within the SPLM. But then by the help of some friends within the SPLM, the conference was held between the 13th and 17th of October 2010. I would recommend that most of you in the audience, you go back to the resolutions of that conference. They are available. If we had respected and observed those resolutions, there would have been, or the situation in South Sudan would have been different now. Of course, somebody will say, oh, it is always easy to be wise after the events. But in this particular case, it was a blueprint for the new state in South Sudan that would have set the basis of a united democratic country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lam. Ultimately, we are going to publish these contributions, and hopefully that you will give us permission to publish what you have said.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much indeed.